Today's presentation is based around the mowing of sports turf surfaces using cylinder mowers. Now, this is based around the level 2 and level 3 EPAs within the UK. So these are what people will be doing at the end of their assessments during their practical. So today's learning objectives, by the end of this presentation, you should be able to do these following things, or at least read back and be able to acknowledge this. You should be able to demonstrate the ability to mow sports turf to a specification using a cylinder mower. And I will define the specification a little bit later on. You should be able to differentiate between the pedestrian and ride-on cylinder mowers, understand the coverage area and the requirements, so we'll talk about this later as well, and comply with the time frame guidelines. So you're expected to do this task sort of within 45 minutes or thereabout. So first of all, as usual, what are the legal and regulatory requirements that govern the use of machinery and equipment? We have the PUA, which is Provision and Use of Work Equipment, 1998. We have Health and Safety at Work Act, 1984, which always covers everything that we do at work. We have COSH, 2002, Control of Substances Hazardous to Health. The Manual Handling Regulations, 1992, and the Environment Act, 1995. Now, there is more to this list, but these are the most common and the ones that will come into play the most often. So first of all, what is a cylinder mower? So a bit of an overview of a cylinder mower. It is different to a rotary mower or flail mower. And basically what this is a cylinder with various different blades on. So you can have up to 12 blades or more. And this comes into contact with the bedding knife or the bottom blade. I'll show you in the next picture, which then creates that scissoring effect. So these are known for their precision and their ability to create a pristine, manicured appearance on a sports field. They can also be used on home lawns, in amenity areas. Our viewpoint, we're just looking at sports turf. So a cylinder mower, as I mentioned, has anywhere between 5 and 12 exposed blades at the front of the mower. These rotate, trapping the grass and slicing it similar to a scissor against the fixed bottom blade, and that's where the cut is created. Typically, the more blades there are, the better the cut, and the grass box are usually also at the front of the machines. Now, as you can see in this picture, we have someone setting the cut on a machine. So there's a little piece of paper there, but we can identify the different parts of the blades here. So you can see the red cylinder with the various blades on that. I think there'll be 6 on this one or 8. And then below that, which it's making contact with, is the bottom blade. So that's the grey portion with those upright screws that you can see on that blade. So the mowing equipment, there is 2 different types of cylinder mower. We have the ride-on mower at the top right, the Jacobson, for example. There's other various different brands as well. And in the bottom right there, we see the pedestrian cylinder mower, the Dennis G860. So with the 2 types, we do need to do different things. For our EPA, with the ride-on machinery, we are looking around 300 square meters. So, roughly a whole football field, or just thereabout. And with the pedestrian machine, we're looking at about 100 square meters. So, roughly about the size of, or half the size of a penalty area. So there's a little bit of difference there, but as long as we can identify the amount of area that we are cutting, measuring it and working it out, we can then say if we've done the whole field in that time, we've definitely covered that requirement. So measuring out the area, what tools can we use? We can use a tape measure, we can use a measuring wheel. If we already know the size of the field, we can say that to the examiner. We can say, we're cutting this field, which is X, Y, and Z, so we know the exact size of it, but you still need to be able to work out the 100 or the 300 square meter. So that's 10 by 10 or 10 by 30 meters, and that will give you your size. Nice and easy. As I say, you can do that with a little tape measure. Well, not a little tape measure, but a big tape measure. Or you can use a much simpler thing, such as a measuring wheel, and just mark that location, whether you do it with a carrot or spray equipment, so you know that that is the area that you need to cut as a minimum. So we have a few videos here for you as well, which we linked. So this is all really important to setting up the machinery, but it's already been covered in another video, so we won't do that today. First of all, we have the pre-start checks. The pre-start checks can then be followed by the adjusting of the height, so we can ensure that the height of the cut is the correct for the machine and for the surface that we are cutting. And finally, we can then set the cut on the machine. So this is, as I mentioned, with the cylinder and the bottom blade, ensuring that there isn't contact, but and the blades are able to spin freely, but they're also managing to cut grass. So the technique when we are mowing, there can be various different patterns within sports turf, depending on what sport it is and the regulations that are given out by the governing bodies. I know in the UK, under FIFA, there are now set rules, set sizes of bays, and there's only basically a handful of patterns that can be carried out within those guidelines. The days of fancy patterns in the UK are not there anymore. Hopefully, maybe one day in the future they'll come back, but we have to adhere to these guidelines at the moment. So achieving the desired result. We want to mow in straight lines, overlapping slightly with each pass, maintaining constant speeds, adjusting the cutting height as needed. If we see that we're cutting quite a lot off, can we cut twice, for example? And we should avoid mowing when the turf is wet or during extreme heat. Now, as for a pattern, as you can see on the bottom right picture, there is a rough idea of how you go about creating the bays. So the light bay will be away from you, and the dark bay of grass will be towards you. So we'll go around in a pattern. Typically, they usually cut in two directions to help promote tillage and grass coverage. It's just good for the plant health. So then what you do is this picture on the bottom right, all you then do is flip that over one, rotate it 90 degrees, and you do the same across the pitch, and you start to create that nice pattern that you see in the top right. Now for headers, this is a little bit different, but within sports turf, it can change in each stadium or each situation. At the top or the ends of the pitches, we tend to single stripe behind goals, for example, or if there is no area there, it might be an artificial matting. So you might actually be turning the mower on the artificial mat, but you need to lift the deck up before you get to the lift the deck or the cylinders up before you get to that artificial mat to ensure that we're not going to get anything trapped within the blades. So safety precautions, which is obviously a big thing. Safety is paramount while operating cylinder mowers. They are dangerous pieces of equipment when used incorrectly. We need to wear the correct protective gear. This is all PPE. This is any sort of, do we need to wear eyewear, ear defenders? We always need safety boots, overalls, work uniforms. We need to keep bystanders at a safe distance. So this can be anything from the people playing the sports to co-workers to public visitors or anything in that respect. And we need to be aware of the potential hazards on the field. So these are things such as debris, sticks, twigs, coins, boots, cones. These need to all be removed before we start mowing that surface. We should be going out and checking to ensure that these things are not there before we start mowing the sports turf area. We also need to follow the manufacturer's safety guidelines. Within every manual for every machine, there will be guidelines set out. It is important that we follow those to ensure the safe operation of those machines. They do a lot of rigorous testing to ensure that their machine is safe if those guidelines are followed. If they're not, then there's a potential for hazards. Touched on it a little bit earlier, PPE. So again, boots, ear defenders, gloves are sort of the main things for mowing. Trousers, always recommended by the manufacturers, although people can be a bit relaxed on that, but for your EPA, ideally you should be wearing trousers. Any environmental considerations, put a little picture of the bird there. Obviously, it's not necessarily the case on a sports pitch. They're most likely to be in a tree, but we could have other animals or any sort of pests or anything like that could be causing us an issues. Other things we want to be doing is avoiding mowing dew. Can we brush that off first to help improve the quality of our cut? Disposing of the grass clippings responsibly, and can we use any sort of eco-friendly fuels, lubricants when possible, to ensure that we're doing our most for the environment. So within this, these are the knowledge, skills and behaviours, the KSBs that we are meeting with this task. So we've got duty for the use of machinery, equipment and vehicles following an organisational's requirements, the manufacturer's instructions and health and safety legislation. So we've covered all those three in this presentation. Knowledge 3 is understanding materials, tools and equipment, machinery used in maintenance and renovation activities. So that's the mower itself. And B3 is the behaviour 3 is taking ownership of your work and responsibilities.